It was the moment Meghan Markle never expected. The veil of self-importance ripped off in front of a national audience, as Jon Stewart, one of America's most respected satirists, openly mocked her on The Daily Show. No deference, no polite evasion, just brutal, unfiltered comedy at her expense. Meghan, once hailed as a media darling and symbol of progressive royalty, has now been reduced to a Hollywood cliché, an attention-chasing former duchess with a string of flops and a rapidly fading brand. Stewart's jokes weren't just humorous. They were an indictment, a confirmation that even among left-leaning, media-savvy circles, Meghan Markle is no longer untouchable. She's become what she never thought she'd be, a punchline. On a recent episode of The Daily Show, Stewart tore into Meghan's newest venture, a so-called cooking lifestyle show on Netflix, mocking the concept as out of touch, tone-deaf, and laughably superficial. With impeccable comedic timing, he roasted the idea of a former royal-turned-pseudo-celebrity trying to teach the public about the joy of cooking from her $14 million Montecito mansion. Because nothing says relatable like a duchess showing you how to sauté asparagus while sipping pressed juice out of a $500 glass, Stewart quipped, drawing a thunderous laugh from the audience. But the punch didn't stop there. Stewart then pivoted to Meghan's already defunct podcast archetypes, sarcastically congratulating her on redefining the art of not saying anything in 45 minutes. He mocked the show's meandering monologues, overproduced format, and its self-congratulatory tone, saying it managed to be simultaneously about women's empowerment and yet completely devoid of substance. The audience again roared. And just like that, Meghan Markle's media ambitions were laid bare, not by a conservative commentator or tabloid hack, but by a respected liberal icon whose comedy lands because it's grounded in painful truth. What Stewart's segment revealed, and what millions quietly understand, is that Meghan Markle is a brand that doesn't deliver. Her Netflix projects, podcast, and media ventures haven't just failed. They've embarrassed her. Despite massive deals with Spotify and Netflix, reportedly worth over $100 million, what has Meghan produced? A single 12-episode podcast that was canceled after one season. A documentary series with Harry that received lukewarm reviews and zero lasting impact. Now, she's pivoting to a cooking and lifestyle show, reportedly focused on home, wellness, and food. A desperate rebrand that reeks of Gwyneth Paltrow envy and influencer fatigue. The facts are damning. Archetypes, the podcast that was supposed to redefine the conversation around gender stereotypes, barely cracked the top podcast charts after its initial hype. Critics slammed it for being vapid and overly scripted. Even Meghan's own interviewees, like Mariah Carey, managed to outshine her on her own platform. Spotify executives were reportedly underwhelmed by the show's performance, with Bill Simmons, Spotify's head of podcast innovation, going so far as to publicly call Meghan and Harry king grifters. That's not internet gossip. That's the man who helped build Spotify's podcast empire calling them out on record. As for her Netflix endeavors, the docuseries Harry and Meghan promised bombshells and revelations. What it delivered was a stale rehash of their grievances, complete with staged photo shoots, cherry-picked headlines, and more complaints about the British press. Even liberal outlets like The Atlantic and The Guardian criticized the series for its lack of introspection and self-awareness. Viewership dropped significantly after the first few episodes. It was a story no one needed to hear again, and the Sussexes' oversaturation in the media only made audiences tune out faster. Jon Stewart's mockery matters because it signals a broader cultural shift. The American media establishment, which once embraced Meghan as a progressive heroine standing up against a racist monarchy, is growing tired. The sympathy has run dry. The narrative has worn thin. Audiences are beginning to see through the performative activism, the empty slogans, the relentless monetization of victimhood. Meghan has long positioned herself as a feminist icon and a champion of equity. But where is the substance? Her projects are branded in the language of empowerment, yet consistently fail to offer depth, research, or lasting social impact. Even her most recent rebrand, a Netflix show rumored to be titled American Riviera Orchard, is an astonishingly tone-deaf venture. At a time of economic crisis, global unrest, and growing skepticism towards celebrity elitism, Meghan's homemade jam project and lifestyle aesthetics feel more like a parody than a platform. It's not revolutionary. It's a rich woman's goop knockoff with a royal title. What Stewart exposed in just a few minutes of airtime is what critics have been saying for years. Meghan Markle is not a misunderstood visionary. She is a carefully curated persona who uses the language of progressivism to sell herself, but ultimately offers nothing of enduring value. And that's why this latest mockery cuts so deep. Because it didn't come from the right-wing press or royal loyalists. It came from a comedian beloved by Meghan's supposed base. Stewart didn't just mock her media work. He dismantled her credibility. This public humiliation may mark a turning point. Meghan, once protected by a shield of media reverence, is now fair game for satire, and rightly so. Her relentless self-promotion, lack of humility, and failure to deliver meaningful content have eroded her goodwill. She has gone from being a symbol of change to a symbol of Hollywood-style hustle, cloaked in royal nostalgia. And now, even the comedians are calling it out that there's a deeper irony in all of this. Meghan spent years cultivating a narrative of being silenced by the palace, the press, the patriarchy. Yet now, with the world's microphones at her disposal, she still manages to say very little. She's not silenced. She's simply hollow. The media didn't muzzle her. It gave her the floor. And in return, she delivered lectures disguised as dialogue, PR gloss instead of vulnerability, and glossy aesthetics in place of meaningful conversation. So when Jon Stewart mocks Meghan Markle, he's not punching down. He's revealing the emperor has no clothes. He's shining a spotlight on the disconnect between her public persona and her actual output. And the audience's laughter wasn't cruel. It was cathartic. Because satire, at its best, tells the truth when others are too afraid to say it. And that truth is simple. Meghan Markle's brand is failing. Not because of race.